Ladies, have you been wanting to make a change, but you don't feel ready? Here's the truth. Readiness is a lie. The model of confidence for women is backward, and we need to flip it. I'm Cara Moeller Poppitt, author of a new book, Big Freaking Change. After coaching thousands of women, I discovered action gives us confidence, not the other way around. If we wait to feel ready, we'll wait forever. So if you're ready to get unstuck and step into the life you've always dreamed about, visit bigfreakingchange.com right now and order your copy. Welcome to the Big Freaking Change podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of those who took bold action, embraced uncertainty, and transformed their lives without ever feeling ready. I'm your host, Cara Moeller Poppitt, author of The Big Freaking Change and the creator of the Get Unstuck Cycle of Change model. Each week, we'll sit down with remarkable individuals who have taken bold steps in their lives, personally and professionally, to make meaningful change. Whether you're seeking a career shift, personal growth, or a boost in confidence, our goal is to inspire you to stop waiting and start taking action. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Big Freaking Change. I'm your host, Cara Moeller Poppitt, and I'm so delighted to be here with a dear friend, a dancer, a role model, and an inspirer, Kelsey Grant. Kelsey, thank you so much for being on our show today.
You're so welcome. It's such an honor to be here.
I just love how we reconnected. We used to dance, like 25, 30 years ago, and we always just had the similar energy that we could align, we could be present, we could be wild, we could be crazy, but we could be real in all of it, and we can connect on a deeper level. And then just reconnecting with you was so wonderful. I want to just share a little bit about your brilliance. Everyone knows how awesome you are. So Kelsey Grant is a songwriter. She's an emotional alchemist. She owns Unhinged Love Coaching for women who want it all. She is a podcast and a content creator. Kelsey, I love how you show up in the world. Talk to me about what you're doing now and what lights you up.
So like you mentioned, I own a company called Club Unhinged with my best friend, and it is the funnest adventure that I have been on to date. And I've done a lot of cool shit. I've had a business for the last 15 years, and I've done love coaching for like primarily that entire 15 years. And a lot of self-love, a lot of relational work. And, the coolest part is that every single thing I've done builds and like opens me up to the next thing. And so I look back now, I'm like, oh yeah, everything I was doing was preparing me to birth Club Unhinged with my best friend, where we're just two off the rails chicks who are like, yeah, let's make personal development great again. Let's make it fun again. Like, let's around and find out how good it can get when we design a life that is powered by magic. And like that is what the club ethos is all about. And so the majority of my time I spend in the club, and we coach and we mentor in there. And then I songwrite as well, and I work with creatives and songwriters all over the world to write songs for their albums that come from a real, true, authentic place. And this is where I kind of merge both of my worlds of relational coaching and artistry, because I get in the room with a writer and they have these songs in them that want to come through, but they don't really know the access to say what they really want to say. And if I take my skills as a love coach and I go in and I just start asking them about the things that are important to them, and I get them storytelling, and I get their world, and I get their emotionality, and I get the things that they're stuck by and stopped by. And I also have this skill as a writer. So I take all of that and I start to condense it down. Like, okay, here are the main themes that we're working with, and these are the main threads of their truest authentic expression, and these words that they keep saying over and over and over, and I'm tracking all of it. And then I bring it into a writing session. I'm like, okay, here's a couple ideas that I've got. Here's, a chorus or a verse, and let's use this as a jump off and go from there. And it's such a fun process to work with an artist in that way, and then see how they make it their own and how they bring it to life. And songs that have been written from that deeper connected place, they hit different. And a song that, you just pick up from a catalog and you're like, okay, like this will sound good on my album. Yeah, that's great too. But also, like, when a song's been written that touches those deeper threads of what's authentic for them as the artist, there's a different intentionality when they sing it. There's a different energy that gets coded into that music. And I love that music can become this vehicle for transformation and change. And so no matter where I am or what I'm doing, like, I'm in this pocket of transformation and alchemy and creation and creativity. And then, I have my love coaching program where I work with people in their relationships as well. And I don't really like put that out in the world a lot because the club is the place where we do a lot of that work now. But if someone really just wants to focus on their relationships, whether that's romantic, platonic, with their kids, with their parents, with their coworkers and colleagues, then I've got a container for that I will sometimes enroll into. But like, all of it always fits together, and I'm always up to something.
Yeah, and it feels like you really created a life by design rather than default, and you're very intentional with where you spend your energy, how you invest it, and really your expectations for life, which I think is a really profound difference that makes you unique. You're an entrepreneur, you're an artist, you're a deep connector, you love love, you love allowing people to express their highest version of themselves. Talk to me about what made you get into this work.
Honestly, Cara, I think it's because I'm truly just unemployable.
Me too.
I'll be honest. Like, I have a lot of issues with authority, and I don't like being told what to do. And I really resist the conventional path. Like, there was never a part of me that was like, that's my destiny. I know that is some people's destiny and they don't feel that conflict about it. But for me, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go to university because there's this cool shit that I want to learn. Not because I'm going to go to university and get a job in like my regulated field. That it would never cross my mind. And when I finished my degree, my dad's like, okay, well, what job are you going to get with your degree? I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to keep working at the restaurant. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, the restaurant's fun. It feeds my need for variety. And also, it gives me a lot of space to be an artist, to do my creative work. And the only job I can really get with a sociology degree with a concentration in gender, sexuality, and women's studies is working for Stats Canada. And while I was really good at stats, it was not my destiny. And so instead, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do whatever the I want to do. And I don't care what other people think about that. And then there was this moment in my relationship in my mid-20s where I woke up to the fact, I'm like, oh, we're going in different directions. Like, I'm feeling this call, this pull to move to Vancouver, and he just doesn't want to move. He wants to stay in Calgary. And I'm like, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we've gone as far as we can go. And so I ended that relationship with him, and then like went on this crazy travel adventure, and then ended up in Landmark and like did my first transformational weekend. And I'm like, oh, this is a whole new world.
It is a whole new
My
world.
life, which is so funny because that was literally the beginning.
Right.
But at the time, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally healed and like everything's sorted and like, let's move on. And it was through that program that it opened up the possibility of really following the thread of what felt like the next right action. And the next right action was moving to a city where I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a community. I didn't even have a house. 3 days before I moved, I did not know where I was living. I just knew that I was going because I had to commit in Landmark. They were like, pick a day and commit. I'm like, okay. So I picked a day and I was like, well, April 22nd it is, or 24th or whatever it was. And I'm like, where am I going to live? Like, I probably need to figure that out. And one of the women that I'd worked with at the restaurant, she messaged me and she's like, hey, I heard through the grapevine you're moving to Vancouver. Where are you living? I'm like, good question. Don't know. She was like, well, my husband's going to be away for the summer and we have a spare bedroom and I would love to have some company over the summer. So do you want to just move in here? She's like, it'll be $300 a month. I'm like, done. And so it worked out. And I packed my car and I moved. And again, like I didn't have a job, and I was definitely completely irresponsible when I came here. I was like, I don't need a job. I'll just live on my credit card. And then eventually my credit card got maxed out. I'm like, I need a job. But even that, I was like, well, what do I want to do that I've never done before? Like, it never occurred to me to like go get a corporate real job. I'm like, what do I want to do? I'm like, well, I like working out. So like I could apply at a gym. I love essential oils. So let me apply at the essential oil store. And I also have always wanted to learn how to do latte art. So let me apply at a cafe. And I ended up getting hired right away at the cafe and had the best time working there for 6 months. And I became an expert in milk frothing and latte art. And it gave me a chance to practice what would become my coaching skills. And at the time, I was also in a program, and my coach was like, you should be a coach. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're an insane person. People don't do this for a living. She's like, yeah, they do. I'm like, and make money? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. She's like, why don't you go into this trial program and just practice? And then, of course, I meet my soul family like a month or two later. They're all entrepreneurs. And they're like, yeah, you need to be a coach. We'll help you set up a business. So like all these things like fell into place very fast. And I only had worked at the coffee shop for 6 months, and then I had a full roster of clients, and I had to quit because I needed the time to work with these people. And I did have a couple other jobs in between as I like stabilized and like built my career. But right from the jump when I moved here, like my soul is like, you got to get there because it is this turning point in your life. And if I had stayed in Calgary, I don't know what would have happened, but it wouldn't have been exciting. And this has been the most wild, expansive ride of my life. And it taught me that I can do anything. Like if I can pick up my whole life, put all my in my car, drive to a new province where I know no one, and it all works out. Like, what if that was the blueprint for my life? That no matter where I go, if I follow my soul, it's always going to work out. It might be a little clunky at times. There are definitely initiations that I've gone through. It has not been all roses and sunshine, but because it was this very soul-led initiation, it was something I could never quit. Like I always knew I had to keep following the next thread and following the next thread, and like piece by piece, it all got built. And now here I am with a business with my best friend, 15 years later, and it is literally the funnest thing ever. And we get
That's
to
so
teach
great.
women how to be in their most authentic expression and reinvent themselves and literally design a life powered by magic, because that's what the two of us have done.
Yes. And when you're sharing your story with us, I picked up that you followed the calling and you trusted yourself. And I think when we just have that ability, then it comes together like a puzzle. But when we fight ourselves, it's often a big mess, and we have to always have that alignment, like you said. And in hindsight, we realize this was weaving this and this took me here, and then you can see the big picture. But in times of change, most people, we want to know the whole picture before we make the change, right? We want to know the place we're living. A lot of people aren't as brave and bold. And so when we're making a big freaking change, we have to surrender to what we thought our life would be and embrace what our life could be or will become. And I think that's the real message for everyone, is that we're always becoming the next version of ourselves, and we're always unfolding. And if we trust our innate knowing or our divinity or our calling or God or our wisdom, we get to enjoy the ride, and we get to be taken to our next destination with more ease, with more flow, with more joy, with more passion, right? When you talk about your business, you get so charged up. And I love that for you, because you're making an impact. You're teaching other women all these amazing skills about self-love, alignment, making change, being visible, being authentic, showing up fully. And I think that's something that I continue to work on too, is we're multidimensional, and sometimes we want to just share a certain part of ourselves with certain people. I was on a trip with my kids, and they were like, Mom, you're like a little crazy, like bring it in a bit. And we were laughing, and we went cliff diving and jumping and surfing and all these fun things. And they got to see me in a new element. I'm like, come on, man, I'm a fun mom too. So I love that you're really focusing on that message for women, because I think it's powerful, because when we can be all parts of ourselves in all situations. We always belong to ourselves. It's not a search for meaning or belonging. It's we belong to ourselves. I just want you to share some of your wisdom on self-love. And how do we get to a place of self-love, especially while we're trying to navigate change? Because sometimes we can be critical on ourselves. We can overthink, procrastinate, judgment comes in. Talk to me about some wisdom that will help people as they're navigating big freaking change to experience self-love in the process.
I freaking love that. To me, self-love is the process of really embracing the full range of who we are. So in other words, like everything belongs. Every part has a sacred part to play in our becoming. So even that inner critic, there's a reason why it's there. And many of these parts are just developed on a default setting. You know, our parents' critical voice becomes our internal critical voice. And we develop all of these coping mechanisms and protective patterns in order to cope with a very unrelational world. Most people do not grow up in a family system that is built on approval, openness, love. There's usually a lot of codependency. There is a lot of emotional suppression. There's a lot of unhealthy behaviors, toxicity, abuse it runs rampant through the world. So the fact that we even like get to a point where we're even considering making a big freaking change is a miracle, you know, and to see it in any other way than it's miraculous makes no sense to me. To me, self-love is this process of looking at our life through the lens of like, whoa, everything is a miracle, including me. My existence is a miracle. And all of these parts, even though some of them are dysfunctional, they played a very functional role at some point because they kept me safe. They got me through something that was really challenging. And without them, maybe I wouldn't have survived every single thing that's happened to me. Sometimes self-love it's a very coded word. So it has a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people. And it can be misunderstood a lot as like bubble baths and self-care. But self-love is the process of loving and embracing every single part of you, including the parts that you're most tempted to reject, including the parts that are difficult to love, including your shadow, your protective parts, everything that you do in the back end of your life that you don't want people to know about. Can you have approval for that in the sense of like, there's a good reason why you developed the adaptation to hide. There's a good reason why you developed the adaptation to isolate, because at some point it wasn't safe to be seen. It wasn't safe to be all of you out in the open. And then you get to a point where there is enough safety in your system that we can start deconstructing some of these patterns and like welcoming them back into wholeness and integrating them. And as we do that, it does make it easier to take those big leaps, to trust yourself, because you're not living fractured anymore. But when you've split all of these parts and you're judging them constantly, your energy is fractured. And so, of course, it feels insurmountable to make a big change, to redirect your life. But the more we call these parts home and we work with them and we code them with acceptance, we code them with approval, we give them new meaning, it locks them in. So I think a bit about these fractured pieces as though they're like tethered and like floating outside of me. And each time I do a process that generates more self-love and more self-acceptance, I'm clicking those pieces back into place. So all of a sudden I feel more whole and complete. And the more of me I can feel, the more confident and self-assured I am in being able to navigate what comes my way. But if I am dysregulated 24/7, it's going to be very difficult to trust the unfolding of life and trust myself to meet whatever life brings my way. So a lot of my self-love work is actually just nervous system work. It's nervous system regulation. It's reparenting. It's very, very, very relational. because every single wound we have is a relational wound. You learn how to human in relationship to other humans. You don't learn rejection without other human beings. You don't learn pain without other human beings. So to try and address those things not from a relational lens doesn't make sense to me. And it doesn't work.
I think long term, you're going to end up back in that place
Exactly.
because you're not complete. You're not embracing all aspects of yourself. And it's not that sometimes I think self-love, we can get on the track of let's develop our weaknesses and think really strategically. But I think the more we know about ourselves, the more we realize we still have to go, and the more unfolding there is, which is a beautiful thing, instead of like, hey, I've arrived at this destination and there's no more growth for me, right? We're always evolving. And I think self-love is a beautiful gift that we give ourselves through doing the work, if we are courageous enough to see, right?
And it can be really spicy. And this is why I love doing it in group containers, because when you watch another woman work through a process with me, you inevitably see yourself in her story.
Right.
And whatever part it hits in you, that part gets integrated as well as you watch it happen with another person. And so everyone in the group is contributing to the collective expansion and transformation and integration. You can heal and transform faster in group containers. Now, sometimes that's not the path that someone needs to go, and there are certain elements that require more holding. So one-to-one work can be very helpful in those circumstances. But overall, I have found like quantum transformation occur inside of these containers. And this is why I'm also super selective with who I work with, because it can't just be like a wild, wild west where like getting slung around and like people aren't able to be self-responsible and like hold themselves. And like, so there is a degree of emotional maturity that is required for this level of work. And it's not for everyone unless they get to that point. And I imagine like anyone who's listening to a podcast on big freaking change, like it's definitely in that category. Like it's not like a foreign concept of self-awareness and self-responsibility and being in tune with our emotional body. But like being in tune with our emotional body is different than being responsible for how we show up relationally, being responsible for how we show up emotionally. Some people can identify their emotions, but their emotions are railing them 24/7. And they're just like, I'm getting railed 24/7. We're like, yeah. And that's good awareness. But like the next level where sustainable change happens is when we can be in the pocket of being responsible for our emotional experiences and understand, well, what's the map here? What is this bringing up that is unresolved in me? And I need a process in order to reintegrate that thing that's being triggered. And so again, it is so far removed from what most people teach self-love to be, because it's so deep and it's so rich and it's very relational, and the emotional alchemy is a huge part of it. And people want to bypass that and just get to the good stuff.
Oh, 100%. We all want that, right? It's like, I'll just detour over here. But the truth is, whatever we are resisting will continue to persist.
Yes.
And will continue to show up in different relationships, different forms,
Yep.
And until we actually have the courage, I believe everything starts with courage. Like you have to have courage that you want to grow and evolve, courage to take self-responsibility. In my book, I talk about a 3-step process where you have to reflect first. So we look at the emotional experiences that we've had. We look at our nervous system. I mean, there's so many aspects to it, but you have to reflect, and then you get to choose to release. And after you release something that's no longer serving, we need to replace it with something that is serving. And sometimes we are willing to do one of 3 steps, but we're not actually continuing. And it's, you got to do the reflection. And I do reflection daily, right? It's a daily habit. It's a muscle. It's part of my workout routine of like, okay, what is showing up for me? How am I feeling? How do I want to feel instead? And to sit with negative emotions, to be vulnerable to ourselves. I think that's a beautiful gift we can give ourselves. And the result is self-love, where we're okay taking up space. We're not comparing ourselves to others. We can be fully expressed. And when I say fully expressed, what I think I'm referring to when people say, what do you mean by fully expressed? Is it's that you're all your dimensions are showing, right? When needed. And you're not feeling like you have to safeguard or monitor or watch your tone or watch your energy. It's like you are your essence and you're comfortable in that presence of yourself, right? I think that's such a beautiful gift. What gets in the way for most women when they are talking about healing their nervous system? So I fully agree with you that we can't get to self-love unless we talk about emotional regulation. Talk to me about some of the things you notice and what you believe the causes are.
I think some of the biggest things are the resistance to feeling uncomfortable, whether that's somatically and like we don't know how to hold sensation in the body. So like when something challenging happens, there are physical sensations that happen in the body. And if historically those are tied to something really challenging, then we're going to try and eject out of that sensation. So this is where we distract ourselves. This is where we might get on TikTok and scroll, or like eat, like crush a bag of chips, or go work out for 5 hours, like whatever it is that we're doing to try and regulate. But it's from this place of trying to get rid of the sensation instead of creating intimacy with it, instead of going into the heart of it. So it's what, like the somatic sensations, there's no capacity to hold them and be intimate with them. And then there are also certain emotions that I notice women have a very difficult time expressing, but just even owning that are there. So anger is one of the big ones. Disgust is also a big one. And then you have fear and you have sadness, but fear and sadness tend to be a little bit easier for a lot of women to be with. But the anger and the disgust and getting them to own the fact that they're pissed or they're disgusted by someone's behavior that is totally unrelational, there's a lot of resistance in that. And I ultimately think that comes down to our codependency coding. So as women, we have a lot, I mean, human beings in general, but like, since we're talking about women, women get a lot of messaging about love and relationships. And a lot of it is moving them in the direction of being more codependently coded, meaning they're more externally focused than internally anchored. And so that sets them up to go through life in a particular way where I'm micromanaging everyone else and I'm taking care of everybody else's feelings. And then people pleasing comes into play and like perfectionism comes into play. All of these like secondary patterns come in as a byproduct of this original coding that we received. So it just takes a bit of time to unwind that. And so it depends on the woman, but like I'll go in where there's an opening. So if we can get in there with the somatic sensations, that's where we'll go. If we can get in with the emotions, we'll go there. If we can get in with a conversation around codependency and relationship stuff, we'll go there. But I always like look at it as a whole. I'm like, okay, where's the most resistance? Where's the least resistance? And I go in where there's least resistance. I don't believe in the methodology of like starting with the hardest part. My methodology, which is very much rooted in nervous system safety, is like going where there's capacity, building more capacity. And then eventually, as you build more capacity and safety within your own system, eventually the next step is to look at the thing that, 10 steps ago was the most confronting, but now it's just the next step. It takes a little bit longer to do that, but it's the sustainable way to do it.
Yeah. I think when we're talking about change and shifting, it's got to be sustainable. And I think sometimes we get to a place where we're so desperate to make change that it's go big or go home. Yeah. And, there's so much research suggesting that women 100% we're people pleasers, we're taking care of other people. We have these tendencies of codependency. And at the root of these issues, and for us holding it all together and thinking of others, is we're now getting sick. And 80% of autoimmune diseases, it's women that get them. And there's lots of studies revealing this. And I think it's time that we really look at the nervous system. We really look at the imprinting, the coding, like you mentioned, and we make change and we educate younger generations and we give ourselves permission to do differently, right? It doesn't have to be better or worse, but different. Like this is no longer serving what could be serving. And I think curiosity will lead us to that place. Kelsey, tell me how you would define courage and your best inspiration for women that are struggling with self-love. This podcast is for men and women, but today's topic is a little more, but anybody who's struggling with self-love and the pathway to really embrace ourselves?
I think courage for me is just the process of being willing to be human, like fully human, and to embrace, again, that full range of what it means to be a human being on this floating rock. It's serious and it's unserious at the same time. And to be able to hold the duality takes a lot of courage, because a lot of people cannot hold nuance, especially this day and age where everyone's walking wounded. We're looking for these binaries that help us feel safe. And real life happens in the gray. It happens in the nuance. To be courageous to me is being willing to play in the gray, the willingness to learn and unlearn, the very real reality that I will be right and wrong. I will make good choices, I will make bad choices. All of it belongs. And if I'm looking at it through the lens of my continued evolution, my continual expansion, there's nothing that I need to shame, blame, make wrong, or judge. And when I can sit from that space, that literally everything becomes possible. Like, this is where we step into that creative vortex of creating ourselves and our life alive.
It's so great. It was so profound just to be fully human, right? And I think that it comes down to permission of feeling it all, allowing ourselves to grow and expand and embracing ourselves. Kelsey, where can people find more about your work and join Club Unhinged as well?
Yeah, so I'm very active on Instagram. So Radical Self-Love is my personal Instagram. And then I also have obviously the Club Unhinged Instagram. And you can find me at kelseygrant.com or clubunhinged.com. Those are the two places where you can find all the work and all the things. And I'm very accessible on Instagram. So come say hi over there if you have questions. We're always up to something.
And Kelsey, I wanted to say thank you for giving me a beautiful testimonial for my book. It's coming out. I got my advanced copies, and so I can't wait to get one in your hands. So thank you for just being a support and another strong woman that sees people for who they are, celebrates. There's never any jealousy. You're just an advocate for powerful women. And I think allowing us to step into our power and presence, because you also are mirroring that back to us. So thank you for how you show up in the world.
You're welcome.
And to all of our listeners, let's tap into our courage. Let's allow all parts of us to be seen, to embrace being fully human, and to trust our inner calling and our knowing and our soulful path. And in hindsight, we will understand how everything weaves together, just like Kelsey experienced and shared with us. Have a great day, everyone, and make those big freaking changes. Bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and would be so grateful if you could share it with someone else that could benefit from it. Let's remember to change our relationship to change itself and take aligned action. If we want to make meaningful changes in our lives, we need to embrace stepping into the next version of ourselves in the process. Remember, stop waiting to feel ready and start taking action today.